are back again, another Friday. It's September 19th, 2014. Brian, Sebastian, movie reviews and more. We have Debbie Lynn Elias. She's finally back in the radio station after always calling in from Movie Shark de Bloor.
Hey, Bri. Well, if I wasn't so busy all the time covering movies and doing interviews, I'd be here instead of on the phone.
That's true, but we always need to have you do that too. And also, I consider this guy an icon, a legend, an icon, and the voice, the great Lee Bailey.
Hello. How are you, Brian?
How are you?
You like my voice?
I do like the voice. I bet you no one's heard that voice before.
That what?
Yeah.
I feel like Julianne Hough on Dancing with the Stars right now, mesmerized by the voice.
And we got two people calling in later today. One at 11:15 our time and 11:30 also.
11:15. We're going to have first-time feature director James Thomas talking about his film Run Like Hell. A new entry in the horror genre. At 11:30, we've got a really great call in with director Claudia Myers, who's going to talk about Fort Bliss, which Brian and I both
I like that movie.
Are very excited about.
Ron Livingston, Michelle Monaghan.
Yep. But before we get to that, let's just kick off the hour with some of this week's new releases, starting with what has to be one of Juliette Lewis's best performances, if not the best performance of her career, in Kelly and Cal. Directed by Jen McGowan. It stars Juliette Lewis, Johnny Weston, who is about ready to take the world by storm. This kid he's the real deal, and he's coming up. And two veterans, Sybil Shepherd and Margaret Colin. Margaret was actually going to be here today, but she's doing her public service civic duty and sitting on a jury.
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she was arrested and was picking up trash or something.
No, but she does have strings with Bill Pullman, who did play President of the United States in Independence Day, so maybe something could have been done there.
And the interesting thing about this is Lee hasn't seen these movies, so we get to ask him later what he thought of what you talked about and if he would go see them too.
Okay.
So he likes to put people on the spot. What can I tell you? But with Kelly and Cal, it is a great film, self-discovery. There's nothing sugar-coated. Juliette Lewis plays a new mother. She's a former rocker. Incorporates a lot of Juliette Lewis's own life and her musical skills, which she does get to show off in the film. Johnny Weston is he's a new paraplegic in a wheelchair following an accident. These two odd souls, both at loss in their life, but trying to put up confident facades. They meet. They strike up a friendship. And it's this really great journey of two fish out of water that find a way to survive through their friendship. And when you bring in Sybil Shepherd and Margaret Colin into the mix as the respective mother and mother-in-law, what could have been cookie cutter is no longer cookie cutter, and you get this great depth and this wonderful performance. Sybil Shepherd, it's a small part, one of the best I've seen out of her in a number of years. Margaret Colin, she goes from being this wonderful, loving, nurturing mother, turns into an ice queen bitch. And it is a great, great performance. So that's high on my list this week. We've also got another journey of self-discovery with Hector and the Search for Happiness. Peter Chesham, writer-director. He did Serendipity with with the dear John, my dear
Cusack.
dear buddy John Cusack. Also did Shall We Dance? He did the Hannah Montana movie when Miley was still a nice girl, shall we say. Stars Simon Pegg, Rosamund Pike, Stellan Skarsgård, Toni Collette, Christopher Plummer, who is fantastic, and poor Hector, played by Simon Pegg. He's a psychiatrist, a therapist, going through a midlife crisis. Doesn't know what to do, decides, I'm going to take off and find happiness. Goes on an around-the-world tour. Meets a lot of interesting people, gets into a lot of interesting situations. It's funny, it's sweet. Some moments are a little uneven, but your heart is smiling as you're watching this journey. So it's a really fun movie. Then, of course, we've got Tracks. stunning. I see a cinematography Oscar nomination coming for Mandy Walker, based on the true story of Nat Geo writer Robin Davidson, based on her own personal journey in 1977 when she crossed the Australian outback all the way to the Indian Ocean, 2,000 miles over the course of 9 months, with herself, her dog Diggity, and 4 camels. This was documented by Nat Geo in 1978. It was turned into a book in 1980. There's been interest in turning it into a film for the past 25 years. They have finally done it. John Curran directs. Written by Marion Nelson. As I said, the director of photography is Mandy Walker. Shot all on location across Australia. It is stunning.
I love Australia. That's my favorite country. I missed this. I didn't even know about this, and I want to see this.
Anamorphic lensing, 35 millimeter, 2-camera shoot. Interesting is that Curran chose to keep one camera on the physical journey that Robin's character, played by Maya Wasikowska, mind you, that she goes on. The other camera is more for the introspective emotional journey. It's a really interesting technical blend that creates this great emotional tonal bandwidth. But beyond everything, it is just stunning to watch. You cannot look away from the screen as you watch this film. It is fantastic. Then we have my favorite of the week. We're going to hear a clip right now from Kevin Smith talking about his film Tusk, and then we're going to get into that.
This thing is a product.
Seems we've got technical difficulties, which are obviously beyond our control. So we'll talk about Tusk, and hopefully we can get the clip back up. This was a very interesting prospect for Kevin Smith. Originally, he had said he was retiring from filmmaking after doing Red State, but then, and he's been doing podcasts. He stumbled across this ad that a guy from the UK placed about looking for a friend. I used to have a friend. He was a walrus. I want somebody to be my friend and pretend to be a walrus. And
a movie was made from this? And you like this?
A movie was made from this. Kevin Smith got inspired, wrote a whole script about an old man, played by Michael Parks.
And Justin Long, who plays...
Justin Long plays a podcaster who is offensive, rude, nasty, arrogant, conceited, everything Justin Long is not. And he goes in search of these great, embarrassing podcast stories. And it starts with one, the Kill Bill kid. They see a viral video of a kid that was playing with swords, imitating Uma Thurman, and slices his leg off. Well, that's somebody he's got to go out and interview. So as a podcaster, he heads off. He leaves his partner in crime back at the studio. Partner in crime is played by Haley Joel Osment. And I asked Haley, what's scarier, seeing dead people or seeing Justin turn into a walrus? Both are apparently equally so. But it's a great discussion. It's very thought-provoking. I call it disturbingly brilliant and brilliantly disturbing at the same time. Very philosophical commentary on humanity. Man versus animal. Where does humanity begin? Emotion. Great visual depth. Instead of doing what Kevin Smith normally does, is what he calls punk rock filming with handheld cameras. He brings in cinematographer James Laxton, who's done a lot of television work on Homeland. And he says, no, we're going to shoot it widescreen, a 2:33 ratio aspect. The result is stunning. Stunning. They shot it all on location in North Carolina, substituting for the wilds of Canada. And actually in an old country club they found as a location. Very little retooling had to be done. But it's this great journey of Justin Long as this podcaster who is now held captive by this elderly gentleman with great stories to tell, who had a best friend that was named Mr. Tusk, a walrus who saved him from the wilds of the ocean on a seafaring journey.
Hence the title of the movie.
And it's played. Michael Parks is simply delightful and delicious as Howard Howe, and he and Justin have an incredible chemistry on screen, and it's a great journey. It's visually, it's got texture, it's rich, it's got color, it's got saturation, but this emotional balance is just, it is amazing. indelible performances, indelible imagery. I can't rave enough.
And then you
about
have the
Kevin.
Frenchman in there.
Yeah, well, yes. All right. Since Kevin's already given it away, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about it. There is a pivotal character that fuels some comedy that I personally think falls flat. Many do like it. Going by the name of Guy Lapointe, it is our friend Johnny Depp. Under heavy prosthetics. Kind of a cross between Peter Falk's Columbo and Rock Hudson's Mac McMillan from the 70s. So it's an interesting dynamic, just an amazing story, but it's the profound nature of the process, and I honestly didn't think Kevin Smith had this in him. The literary reference is rich. The monologues of Michael Parks just stun. Truly.
And you like this film.
I am just beyond enamored with this film on so many levels, from the performance level, with the exception of Johnny Depp.
Now, is this a studio film?
No, this is totally independent.
But the Weinstein did come in and pick it up. For some strange
originally, Jason Blum at Blumhouse was interested in the film.
Yes, exactly.
But then everybody was like, nah, because they've got a distribution deal with Universal, and Universal said, no, we really don't want this film. And it gets very graphic and very gory as you see a man being turned into a walrus.
Really?
Physically, yes.
Can I go ahead and try this clip again?
Go ahead.
Of course.
Here we go.
And we should have that clip queued up now of Kevin Smith.
This thing is a product of its time and era. Is born of social media and the internet. Is of the era of podcasts. Is born of podcast. Is about podcaster. Twitter greenlit it.
And what better place to talk about Tusk than on a radio show and a podcast?
You ask Kevin Smith one question, he'll talk for 41 minutes.
And that is exactly what he did the other day, all 41 minutes, which were divine.
Now, I didn't like this movie, Lee.
Why not?
I just didn't like it. I liked how he shot it. I liked the performances. I just didn't like the movie. People in Toronto liked it, but people here didn't like it. What's the difference on it, though?
I think a lot of it is you have to pay attention to the dialogue. The dialogue in this film is so key in establishing the commentary and the profound ideas of man versus animal, emotion versus non-emotion. What defines us? And so much of that is found within the monologues that Michael Parks has. A lot of literary depth, reference, and it really does, when you listen to it, it makes you think. And as you see, Justin Long, this is an incredible performance, because as the film progresses, he loses his mechanism as an actor, is physicality and his voice. That is taken away as the film progresses, as he is transformed into a walrus. And then it falls on his eyes and being confined to emote and give us all of this emotion. And it is amazing to watch him, and you see his eyes, and you see pain, and you see a transformation from this hard-nosed, callous, arrogant ass into somebody who is pained, who is hurt, and who is seeking help, and he can't even say it.
Well, I can't believe from the way you're describing it, it sounds incredible. But you've seen it, and you're not buying it.
No, but what she's talking about, the pain of that's what gets you.
Yep.
Of that performance. But no, I just didn't like the movie. And it's really it's really weird. It's like your first reaction, and they made a movie about this, and I can see Universal saying, no, I don't think so. But Blumhouse, he's got a great track record.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Jason had to back away from it, because personally, I think this would have been right up their alley.
His rep said no. Kevin wrote him a nice letter. He wanted to do it. He did it. Well,
I'm a little confused. Is the movie going to be distributed, or are they looking for a distributor?
It's wide release
It opens today.
Not even a platform. It is wide. It is nationwide.
Who's distributing it? Is that Weinstein?
Well,
they found a distributor.
They found a distributor. Yeah.
Yeah. A24 film.
A24 has it.
So
A24.
You think it's going to find an audience?
It's a Kevin Smith film.
He has that audience. He's got
has
that built-in audience.
I see this becoming a cult classic. And I do see a broader mainstream acceptance of the film than what many may think, because of the novel nature, because you also get to see Haley Joel Osment stepping out of what everybody thinks of him as. He's been out of the limelight because he was in school, he was at NYU, he's been doing a lot of voiceover. He's back in front of the camera now. And a lot of people still think of him as the little boy who sees dead people. So to see him now jump out of back into the forefront is a really, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience to see him. And he really embraces the character, as does Genesis Rodriguez. She plays the love interest of Justin Long with a few twists and turns.
She's the next star coming up.
Yeah. Genesis... Yeah, she made a mark in The Last Stand with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Absolutely.
She really broke onto the scene in Man on a Ledge. So Genesis is definitely up and coming.
And with that, we'll be right back. This is Brian Sebastian with Debbie Lynn Elias, the great Lee Bailey. We're going to come back and ask Lee a couple films after Debbie finishes her follow-through afterwards. We'll be right back. Adrenaline Radio, and on the phone we have, are you there?
Yeah.
How are you? You're listening
I'm
live
good,
to Movie Reviews and More. Debbie Lynn Elias, Lee Bailey. Take it away, Debbie.
Is this the wonderful James Thomas I have here?
This is. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thrilled to have you, James. Writer, director, cinematographer, co-founder of Two Guys in a Film. And already,
kind of multi-hyphenate.
And already you and your partner in crime, Canyon Prince, you've each turned out a film. And we're going to talk about yours today, Run Like Hell.
Awesome.
So, why should everybody run like hell to grab this on off the DVD shelves on Tuesday and to pay their $6.99 on VOD?
Well, it's a fun little kind of throwback to the way we saw horror movies in the 70s. It wasn't all monsters, it was people, and it was people like you and I that would do these crazy things. So it's a fun little throwback to the way kind of we used to see horror films. So if that's something that you're really into, this is the film for you.
Okay, I find it really interesting. You said the people like you and I. Has Annie been telling you things about me?
No.
Now, I watched the film, James, and you've got a lot of really interesting production values going on. You've got prosthetics, you've got blood, you've got kills. And you start off the film though with a scene that just grabs you, takes you by surprise. Some VFX going on in there. Where did this story come from? What made you think of telling this story out in the desert? We got a lot of desert things going on here today too.
And James, it better be good because I have not seen it, so it's got to make me run out and see this. So
convince Brian.
So the idea kind of stemmed from a dream that I had one night. I woke up and I started kind of writing things down, and then the next week I went and picked up my brother and moved him out from Ohio. He works in post-production out here now. And along the way, we ended up stopping in a small town. I think it was in Kansas, I believe. And it was like 3 in the morning, and it was really creepy, to be honest. It was like, it was one of those situations where you're like a little scared just going into the local gas station because it's like 3 in the morning. There's some, a couple people around, but nothing else. And so it kind of stemmed this conversation of, okay, so what happens what happens in these small towns? What do people do every day? And so we kind of took this dream that I had of these murderous hillbillies and shifted it into this kind of road trip gone wrong film.
Well, it certainly is a road trip gone wrong, and reminds me of many that I've taken, as a matter of fact.
Well, you can relate to being in those small towns at that point. Anything can happen, and most likely everything does happen.
Yeah, especially when it's 3 in the morning.
Now, James, you come out of a music video background. What is it that gave you the confidence that you could write and direct a feature?
To be honest with you, it's something that I had always wanted to do. I was one of those kids that was making little films when they were young and going around and shooting little short films with your friends, and And but I was really kind of scared to even call myself a director. It's a really daunting task, and it's really difficult. So for me, I kind of went the way of learning different crew positions for a while. So you're right, I camera loaded for a lot of music videos, and then I shot music videos, and I started directing some music videos. And it wasn't until Canyon and I sat down and really said, hey, look, you want to direct a film, I want to direct a film, let's just make this happen, because no one's really going to make it happen for us. It's now or never, basically, for us. That it really shifted into something that I was kind of afraid of to something I was going to take by the horns. I've always been somebody that really thinks that those things in life that terrify you, those things that make you super nervous, are the things you really do have to do, because it always makes you a better person.
So now I know you're going to have a premiere for this film shortly. Do you know when and where?
We are going to be on VOD everywhere, basically. Cable, VOD, internet VOD, iTunes, Amazon, all of the above, Google Play, PlayStation Network, and Xbox starting on Tuesday, the 23rd. Mm-hmm. We had a pretty awesome theatrical premiere on the 9th of September, and that was just phenomenal to actually watch an audience engage with your movie. It was pretty great.
Now, you're having another LA theatrical run, aren't you, next weekend, I think?
In Santa Monica, yeah.
Santa Monica.
What theater? Do you know?
It is... I'd have to look it up. Sorry.
Hey, was it hard to get your financing for this? You talk about getting it on VOD, because it seems to be the ultimate goal for independent movie makers now.
It's kind of where everything has shifted. You're right. We've kind of moved away from this culture that needs physical copies of stuff, and we've moved towards this VOD thing, and it's become kind of like the Wild Wild West. It's so different. It's so much more of an interesting landscape, especially for young filmmakers like myself. That we go out and we make a project on passion and pocket change, and it really allows filmmakers to get their stuff out there. For us, it was kind of difficult. I mean, we did end up raising our money through equity, so we went out and knocked on every door we knew, and and people were gracious enough to invest some money in the film. But then when we went to sell the film, it was another interesting thing. We had a one good thing going for us, that it was a genre horror film, which is a kind of a marketable thing, But the VOD landscape is so different now, and Gravitas came on board and has just been doing a fantastic job releasing the film.
James, what would get the audience to come out and see this movie?
What would get them to come out and see the movie?
Absolutely.
It's really action-packed. It's got a lot of fun moments in it. It's got some jump moments. It's got those moments where we really draw you in as an audience, and really, you start to put your faith in what's happening on screen, and it just blows your mind. So, if you're a big fan of those scare moments, if you're a big fan of that throwback style of 70s horror, then this is definitely a film you're going to enjoy.
Hey, I want to thank you for calling in, James. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Well, and then quickly following up with our little horror fest going on here today, we have The Guest, which just opened up, starring Dan Stevens, creating a splash everywhere after being killed off on Downton Abbey. A beloved character, but we get to see him here as a war veteran who shows up at a family's home to say, hey, I served with your now-deceased son. He was lovely. He was wonderful. And the family takes him in. But things are not what they seem to be. This film comes compliments of Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett, two of the guys who work on all of Ty West things. Ty, a known commodity in the horror genre as well. It is... Number one, you take one look at Dan Stevens, and every woman out there will very easily let him be a guest in their home. So that's reason enough for women to go and see it. For guys, it's intriguing. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of kick-ass action. There's explosions. There's gunfights. I can't reveal too much of the particulars of the players because it would divulge what the big secrets are. But this is definitely a film you want to be a guest at. The Guest.
Lee, let me ask you, because you're so busy doing everything, you don't have a lot of time to get out there to see a lot of movies, obviously.
Time. Almost no time.
But was there one particular movie that just made you just really become a film lover in a way? Anything that hit you when you were growing up before you got into radio?
Oh my God, that's such an impossible question to answer because my mind goes blank. Obviously, I've seen some good films over the years. I mean, being that I've been around for about 6 decades now, I've seen some good films, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Always flash back to the most recent stuff. But obviously, I've been influenced by a lot of films.
Well, go back to when you probably started. Shaft.
What does that mean?
Yes, I'm wondering that.
You've been around. You've been around for a long
Well,
time. You know, you interviewed all these people.
Yeah, but let me see. When did Shaft come out? That was
Early 70s.
Early
70s, yeah.
Okay. That was before I was even in the industry. I was in the Air Force. I was still in the service, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe was I maybe I was broadcasting at the time.
No, you were broadcasting at the time.
I put it this way. I got out of the Air Force, if I'm not mistaken, in 1970.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what year
Shaft is
came out.
72.
Okay, so around that time.
Yeah.
Superfly comes to mind. That was kind of a mind-blowing experience. Well, you know, that whole blaxploitation
Absolutely.
era. There were some good films.
You had Mario Van Peebles coming out. You had Isaac Hayes.
Yeah.
All of
they
them.
say
And
the
you've
black-
interviewed them all, right?
I've interviewed most of them. I'm not sure about all of them, but pretty close to most of them. Richard Roundtree, just saw him not too long ago. He's, God bless him, in his mid-70s now and still looks incredibly good. A real down-to-earth kind of guy. I met Fred Williamson a few years ago. He's just like his characters, a real a-hole. Hey, what a jerk. Well, yeah, I think he was playing with me, but I mean, it was just like watching one of his characters. He just lit me up and just talked about me. He didn't even know me. He just went in on me. Somebody introduced me to him. We were at some event in somebody's office, and so he just started talking about me. I'm like, what the hell? Which it was kind of interesting. I kind of liked it, but it was like the gall of this guy. You don't even know me, and you just lighting me up here. Well,
I remember Jamie Foxx. You walked into the room one day for a drink and something, and all of a sudden you got there a little bit late, and Jamie Foxx goes, "The great Lee Bailey is here," in your voice, and I thought that was funny. And then, but everybody started doing that. What does that make you feel like?
That's interesting. Although to me, it's like I always say, damn, is that what I sound like? Because you're Lee Bailey, and I'm like, I don't talk like that. Or do I? Is that how I sound to people?
Well, they think you do.
And I'm like, if that's how I sound to people, I'm going to sound pretty damn weird. Because that's how it sounds to me.
You got this interesting story. I got to ask you when we come back about Michael Jackson. This is Adrenaline Radio. You're listening to us live. I'm Brian Sebastian. Movie reviews and more. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Brian Sebastian, live on Adrenaline Radio, movie reviews and more. We are back. Debbie Lynn Elias, the great Lee Bailey.
Yes.
And on the phone, we have Claudia Mayerth for her movie, Fort Bliss, that Debbie and I both saw. Claudia, are you there?
I'm here.
Hello,
Nice to speak
young
with you
lady.
both.
How are you?
Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Claudia. She's wondering, who the hell is that? It's me, Claudia. That's all you need to know.
So I am so thrilled that you were able to call in today, Claudia, to talk about Fort Bliss, because this is such, as we talked about in our interview with Michelle Monaghan, this is such an important movie. It's a powerful movie, and it's one that all Americans need to see.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Can you give us a little background about what the film is about? I didn't talk about it earlier today. I wanted to leave this for you because this is something that you are very passionate about, and women in the military and the military in general, with your background in military films, I think you're the proper person to give us a description and talk about what Fort Bliss is all about.
Sure. Well, to just summarize the plot in a sentence or two, it's it's about a female Army medic played beautifully by Michelle Monaghan,
Yep.
who comes back from an extended tour in Afghanistan and finds that she really has to rebuild her relationship with her 5-year-old son. And the story really grew out of some research that I was doing for an Army training film, and actually grew out of me hearing a story about a single father who had deployed a couple of times and had to leave his son with his neighbors because the boy's mother wasn't in the picture anymore. And I as a civilian without a military background, I was really struck by that story, and I realized at that moment that I had been, in fact, very sheltered from some of the ramifications of these wars that we were fighting at the time, and that it was something that I wanted to learn more about. And I felt like in particular, the situations of soldiers who are also parents and have to really juggle the demands of these two competing worlds were really poignant to me. They were really powerful, and I felt like it's a story that's not often told, especially from a female perspective. And I do feel that the expectations and the circumstances for women in particular are unique and are different.
Well, and this is the first time in the history of the United States that we have had women in the combat theater. So we have a whole different perspective of war now and the dangers that are inherent to women, both on the battlefield, on foreign soil, and the battlefield they face when they come home to children that don't remember who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the stakes could not be higher. And it's true that, in a relatively short period of time, about 60 years since World War II, we've seen women's roles in the military, evolve very rapidly. And yes, they are, at times in the line of fire. And some people feel that this is, a great thing, and that they're finally earning the recognition they deserve. And on the other hand, when they're mothers, people feel that, that they're shirking their primary responsibility. And so the film is really a kind of about raising questions about, in a way, women's roles in our society and in our culture. And for me personally, the film is in a way the ultimate working mother story. I think that's how I related to it on a basic level, and I hope that's how a general public will relate to it. Because I think it's something we all struggle with. As parents who also want to pursue something that's meaningful to us and have an impact. So I feel there are a lot of different elements at play in the film.
Well, the real key here to Fort Bliss that really makes it the emotional powerhouse that it is Michelle Monaghan and her performance as Maggie Swan. What led you to Michelle? This is the performance of her career.
I think Michelle is an extraordinarily talented actress. I think most people would agree with that. But I do think that there haven't been opportunities for her to display all the range that she has as an actress in perhaps in a single role the way this one, allowed her to do that. I mean, her character is flawed, which I think is a good thing, and she has, really different dimensions. She can be tough, she can be vulnerable, she can be extremely charismatic, she can be, she can make some very questionable choices, and and she's also very feminine, and at the same time, depending on the environment, she can also have some very masculine qualities. So I think, it took an actress like Michelle, I think, to really embody all these different things in a way that feels, I think, very organic. But I never had any doubt about her ability. I knew it would be, my job would be easy once she said yes.
Well, Claudia, I got to ask this question. What would it take to get the audience to come out and see this? Because it opens today, obviously.
It does open today. I think just, exactly what we're doing, which is talking about the film. I hope people are curious about a movie that, talks about the war from a female perspective and the perspective of a soldier that's also a mother. I think anyone who's ever, wondered how, what the best way to juggle career and family is might think that this is an interesting perspective on that. But definitely we're a small independent film at a busy time of year, and we do need support. There's no doubt about it. We really hope people will go out and support the film and go see it in theaters today.
Well, I think it's also important to point out, Claudia, that the film does not politicize anything. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no left, there is no right. This is about individuals. This is about mothers. This is about people who have jobs, and the job just happens to be as a soldier, as a medic in the military, and as a mother who misses her child desperately.
Yeah, I couldn't put it better. So I agree with you, and I think that's a key element of the film right there. That it should be relatable to people.
And I would be remiss not to mention the real heart-tugger in the film, little Oakes Fagley, who plays Paul. How did you find this adorable child?
There's no doubt that I got incredibly lucky with Oakes. I found him by having auditions in New York. We had auditions in New York, in Los Angeles, and actually at the real Fort Bliss, where we saw military-connected children who just kind of came in and read, because I thought maybe an on-actor would who kind of understood the situation personally would be a good choice for the role. But Oakes, he's really smart, and he's not shy about going for those bigger emotions, and he was just a joy to work with. I think he was one of the second or third children that I saw in the auditions, and I remember thinking, I think this could be the one. But we had obviously planned to see many, many more children, and so we went through the process. But something about his face, this range that he had, he really drew me in, and on some level, I cared about him.
And ironically, Oakes is he's up against himself at the box office this week, because he is also in This Is Where I Leave You with Jane Fonda, Justin Bateman, Tina Fey. So which movie do you think Oakes should go see? Should he go see this movie, or should he see the other movie?
Well, of course he should see this movie, although he has seen it several times.
He should pay to see it.
He's been to several screenings, and it's just, the whole cast is so tremendous, and they've been so dedicated, as has everyone on the film, including my producing partners, John Sullivan and Adam Silver. So this has been a labor of love from start to finish. It's been 7 years since I first got the idea, so it's an exciting day, and I do hope people will support the movie.
Claudia, thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it, and people, you need to go see this. It's written and directed by Claudia. Women power once again out there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Claudia.
Lee, now back on to Lee.
Yes, sir.
Now back
Yes,
to
sir.
Lee.
One of my favorite websites out there, and we're going to tell that Michael Jackson story in a moment.
Wondering when I was going to get a plug here.
Well, it's important because this is the only African American. I hate that term. I say black website.
You can say black.
I like that.
African American.
You can say urban. You could say urban. That I pay attention to. I get all my news. I see what's going on with that. I see very, very little gossip, and I like that. Talk about how you started that.
I started EUR Web. It was actually the outgrowth of our syndicated radio program called Radioscope. It began life as Radioscope's Electronic Urban Report. It found life on EUR Web because actually it started out as a newsletter, a 3-day-a-week newsletter. And then I was approached by some guy who I've never met to this day to if he could repurpose the content at his site. I think it was called Global.
It's the guy out of Boston.
Have you been stalking me or something?
I do my homework. Not as good as Debbie.
You're doing more than homework, dude. You're scaring the crap out of me. What did I have for dinner last night?
Not a lot. You weren't feeling too well.
Well, he made that public knowledge earlier today, so that doesn't count.
Oh, that's right.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
The stalker wasn't stalking last night.
But anyway, before I interrupted myself, a guy named Mike Blackstock. I can't. It was Global something, Global Drum. Maybe that's. I can't remember. He asked me if he could repurpose my newsletter at his website, and he began to get hits from it. Blah 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 blah. Pretty soon, I figured, well, I need my own website. I was going to call it EUR.com, but couldn't do that because there's a site that still exists to this day in Europe. It's some kind of health site or something called EUR.
Yep.
.com. So I came up with the next best thing was EUR Web, because back then people were thinking of portals as opposed to focusing in on one particular thing. So the idea was to be sort of an urban or black or African American portal with entertainment news and health news, just a number of different kinds of things. And so the EUR Web is where people theoretically would come to access that information. So hence the name EUR Web.
And people have come. Everybody goes to that site.
Well, I'd like to think that quite a few, obviously.
No, everybody goes to that site.
All right, you're right. Everybody.
When you got Byron Allen, you got Reverend Al Sharpton, you got Oprah going, everybody's going to that site.
Damn, dude.
Yes, everybody's going to that site.
Okay,
and the important thing was that you started it way, way back. 1997.
Yeah, we were ahead of the curve. And thank God we're still here. You know, I think about it sometimes. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of sites. I mean, extremely well-financed sites that have come and gone.
I know.
But we're still here by the grace of God.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think because we have value, we have quality, we're serving a purpose. I mean, somebody obviously finds value in what we're doing. Also, it doesn't hurt that I've tried to keep the overhead as low as possible. I mean, still to this day, I run it out of my world headquarters, as I like to say, is in the other bedroom of my condo. Most of my associates, writers, videographers, or whatever, they're independent contractors, so I don't have a large staff per se. So I keep the costs down as much as possible, and
I've seen other people do that too. I'm not sure if everybody did it conscientiously like that, but that's the smartest and the best way to do it. Because I remember that building that you were in too. I can only imagine what you were paying.
Yeah, back in the day when things were really flowing, when radio syndication was at its zenith.
And now it's nothing.
Now it doesn't even exist almost. But the other reason that EUR came along, we were talking about this earlier, was the fact that radio syndication itself got to the point where it was so difficult to keep it going. You have the gatekeepers out there, the program directors and general managers or whatever, and they have their own agenda. So if you have a idea or a radio program, you've got to convince every program director in every market to carry it, and if they're not on the same page with you, then you have problems. Or if you, God forbid, you get the program on, then that program director gets canned or decides to leave for another job. A new guy comes in or a new girl comes in. They're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater because they want to show that they have their own, they're doing their own thing. They don't want to carry over anything from the previous regime. So that happened a lot. Yeah. So it was just one big headache. So I thought to myself, when the whole idea of the internet came along, or I should say when the internet came along, I saw it, to me, it was obvious it was the future. Because with the internet, you're talking, print, voice, and visuals or video all in one. It was and has. Well,
that was being a futurist then, seeing that.
Yeah.
Because
to me it was obvious.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people I met back then who didn't have a clue, who thought I was crazy. It's like, are you kidding? This is the future. I can't put it any other way. I saw it and jumped on it immediately because I knew that's where things were going.
When you have your interviews out there with people, I've been waiting. Two people that I liked. I liked Shaka Khan, but I knew she was nuts. I liked Rick James, and I hated his concert. Now, I know you've interviewed these two people. Yeah. Give me your thoughts on them.
Well, Rick James was a cool dude. He was obviously a super freak. Literally was a super freak and a super ego. We we were good buddies, I guess you could say, at one point. Then an incident happened where we became quote unquote estranged for a number of years. But before he passed away, we had a chance to, I guess, mend fences, as it were. But and Shaka, sort of the same way. I interviewed Shaka one time, and her mother, her family didn't particularly care for the interview because they didn't like the fact that I sort of put her on Front Street, I guess. But she was just being honest. But they didn't like the idea that I broadcasted. And I think about it, back then, I guess we broke it. The stuff that you see now with blogs and whatever, like you say, we weren't doing gossip, we're just doing reality.
Right.
I would ask somebody a question, they would give me an answer. It was an honest answer, but it was back then in the 80s, early to mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that would freak a lot of people out if they heard the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't pretty. I mean, nowadays it's not a big deal, but back then it freaked people out to hear the truth.
When you think of Michael Jackson, tell your Michael Jackson story. That's kind of interesting, actually.
Well, I've got a couple of Michael Jackson stories, but I guess the one you're talking about is he was getting a plaque for his, I can't remember if it was Off the Wall or Thriller. I think it was Thriller. It was over at the CBS offices, which used to be off of Santa Monica Boulevard in Century City.
Oh, yeah.
And Jane Fonda was there to give him his platinum plaque, and so I had the opportunity to talk to Michael for a few minutes, and he asked him if all the places he'd like to do, what hasn't he done, and what would he like to do that would blow people's mind. And he said he wanted to do a concert on the moon. And right then and there, I knew this guy definitely is different. And I said, well, why would you want to do a concert on the moon? Well, because you can't hear it. And I went, well,
Okay.
well, that's definitely different. And he wouldn't really explain it any further. I couldn't question that. It was like, okay, whatever, dude.
Did he have his glove on that day?
I don't remember if he had his glove on. But the other time I remember talking to him was before that. It was a tribute for Quincy Jones, which was really weird. It was at the Beverly Wilshire, the one at
Beverly Hilton?
Beverly Hilton. He walks in, he drives up. Both times he drives up by himself, or at least at the record company thing, I saw him leave by himself, and he drove himself in his Rolls Royce. Then at the Quincy Jones thing, he drives up in that Rolls Royce again, all by himself. Gets out, valet parks the car, and he walks in, and me and several other reporters approach him and ask him, well, what would you like to say about, some thoughts on Quincy getting the award tonight? And he spent about, 30 to 60 seconds telling us why, in that voice. I can't say anything. I really, I'm not here to say anything. And it went on and on and on, and we're like, dude, you spent a minute saying why you can't say or won't say anything. You could have just easily said, Quincy is my friend. He made me the superstar I am, and been done with it. But it was just really weird where he just insisted on spending time saying why he couldn't or wouldn't say anything. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well, talk about getting awards. You getting an award, a Visionary Award. Talk about that. And you've had many of them. Were you surprised to be honored with these things? Because you just put your head down and just go to work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't do what I do for awards. I've heard other people say that, and it's absolutely true. In my case, I just don't. I don't even think about it. I just want to do the work. But
And of course, awards don't pay the bills.
No, they don't pay the bills. You're absolutely right. But on the other hand, when I was notified that that they wanted to give me an award, I was kind of choked up, because it's like, well, damn. It's about time. on the other hand, it's like, but it's called the Living Legends Award. It's going to be October 3rd at the Taglian, if I'm not mistaken, Center in a new facility, relatively new facility in Hollywood. And it's the Living Legends Award, along with Gail Mitchell from Billboard magazine, Keith Clinkscales, who was one of the founders, along with Quincy Jones, of Vibe, magazine back in the day.
Which just went out.
Stopped printing.
Yep.
Which is now online only. See what I told you about the future?
Yeah.
The lady who owns TV One and Radio One, oh my God, Kathy Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
She's being honored as well, along with several other people I can't think of right now off the top of my head. But I'm immensely thrilled and honored to be in the company of all those great people. And I got to start thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm not one known for giving, lengthy speeches, so it's going to be short and quick. But I'm very appreciative that somebody thinks I'm worthy of the award.
So, and I've asked Oscar winners where they put their awards. I've asked Emmy winners, where do you put your awards? Where are you going to put your award?
I'm going to put it on. I have a. I wouldn't call it a shelf, a bookcase or some kind of glass case. I don't exactly know what you would call it, but I've got a few awards there from over the years, from different things I've done that people thought I was worthy of one. So you're right. I mean, I do have a few awards, but again, I don't do it to get awards. You just do the work, and if somebody thinks you're worthy of something, then you go and pick it up. But yeah, I'll have it on display. Why not? I'm not no weirdo or something. And then, put them in some back room or put them in a box somewhere.
Or as a door stopper.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in the bathroom on the toilet tank.
Yeah, we've heard of that one too.
We've heard quite a few.
Really?
Quite a few Oscar holders. Their Oscars are in the bathroom. And then Michael Caine had a shelf built for his right over his desk. And when he told me this story, I was just laughing because he said, I had a shelf built, custom built. I put it up there so that when people walk in the room and I'm sitting there, the Oscar is over my head and they have to look at it.
Okay. Works for me.
Talk
Give
about
me an idea.
Social media. How important is social media for you? Are you Twitter? Do you use the Instagram and all that?
Yeah, I'm there. Not as proficient as I would like to be. Still learning. A lot of our stuff is we're on social media. All of our stories are put on social media.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Well, we it's set up so that they automatically go up.
Okay.
So that lessens the workload. But there's still a lot about social media that I don't know. All of what I do know is that it's extremely important. Without social media, you're at a disadvantage. Put it that way, an extreme disadvantage, because social media is, well, from my point of view, it's a driver of traffic, and it's how some people get their information. They don't even visit websites.
Yep.
I was saying 8 months ago, everything is on your phone. You're not too far from your phone. It's the first thing everybody looks at.
Yeah. So you have to be there. Well, they say you fish where the fish are. So you got to be where people are, and people are focused on social media. It's that important. So even though I don't know a lot about it, I'm still learning. All I know is that we're there, which is the most important thing, and we'll get better from here. But we're there.
Talk about Quincy Jones. He's got a movie that opens today, too, Keep On Keeping On, which is a documentary I really, really like. I'm sure you got some great Quincy stories for you, too.
Well, I'm not sure if I have Quincy used to see me all the time, and he said, how many? He was talking about how many employees do I have. He had this little running joke, which I thought was very sweet of him to just, earlier in my career, we met, and he knew that my company was sort of struggling, and so on and so forth, and I would see him at different places, at Roscoe's someplace, or just anywhere, and he would just say, how many this time? So it was just, to me, it was just great that this great man, this icon, would even think about giving me the time of day, and just in his own way sort of just encourage me to keep on. So I've always loved that about Quincy, and I've always loved interviewing Quincy, talking. I think most people do, because he's just an incredible storyteller, and he's very candid at the same time. He's pretty much an open book for the most part, but I love Quincy Jones, bottom line.
Give us your website. Give us your Twitter account.
EURweb.com, and it's EURweb on Twitter, and Leebay, or rather Lee EUR Web on Twitter. So 2 Twitter accounts. But primarily just go to EURweb.com and From there, you can jump off to all the social media sites. Am I being dismissed?
You are being dismissed.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
I'm glad that you came.
I'm glad
Obviously,
I came
Debbie.
too.
Oh my God. I'm glad that Debbie's here today.
MovieSharkDeplore.com, MovieSharkD on Twitter, and then find me around the world and print and online.
And I'm Brian Sebastian, moviereviewsnmore.com. The same, Movie Reviews and More Twitter. We'll see you next week.